Up next, don't miss this. Hey y'all, and welcome to Malcolm Viren Hearing. My name is Malcolm, and today we've got Senator Marsha Blackburn channeling pure conspiracy energy as she accuses Biden's staff of faking his presidency, using the auto pen like it's a magical signature machine, and treating the White House like a Broadway stage with no lead actor. Just shadows behind the curtain and a script signed in invisible ink. If you thought the GOP was done with the puppet president narrative, buckle up. This one's got gold bars, Titanic metaphors, and a guest appearance by Proof of Life. Let's dive in.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I want to talk about the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. There's a request to spend $25 billion in this year alone. First of all, is this system designed to intercept a full salvo attack?
Senator, it's a multi-layer system that would include different types of salvos. Obviously,
so it's not just Rogue Nation. Okay.
Well, it's meant to. Yes, it's not meant to be just one nation. It could be utilized in
against Russia or China, full salvo. So what kind of reliability are you aiming to build into the system? Are we looking for something like 4 nines on intercept success? 99.99% reliability?
Obviously, you seek the highest possible. You begin with what you have and integrating those C2 networks and sensors, building up capabilities that are existing with an eye toward future capabilities that can come online as quickly as possible, not just ground-based, but space-based.
So against future capability too. So do you believe that we can build a system that can intercept all incoming threats? You think we could build that system? This is a very hard physics problem.
You would know as well as anybody, sir, how difficult this problem is, and that's why we put our best people on it. We think the American people deserve it.
So let me tell you what I think we're facing here. You're talking about hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, varying trajectories, MIRVs, so multiple reentry vehicles, thousands of decoys, hypersonic glide vehicles, all at once. And considering what the future threat might be, it might even be more complicated than that. And you're proposing spending not just $25 billion, but upwards of, I think CBO estimated this at least $500 billion, other estimates, $1 trillion. I am all for having a system that would work. I am not sure that the physics can get there on this. It's incredibly complicated. So I want to get to another issue that you're facing here. How much of the staff of the Office of the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation did you cut?
After collaboration, sir, with the service departments, the Joint Staff, and others, we identified that as a place where there were redundancies and multiple additional layers that were unnecessary.
I'll tell you what you cut. You cut 74%.
Most of it. That's what I was going to say.
Most of it. And was your decision to cut more than half of the Pentagon's Testing and Evaluation Office staff driven in part by concerns about the office's plan to oversee testing of Golden Dome?
The concerns were not specific to Golden Dome, sir. It was years and years of delays unnecessarily based on redundancies in the decision-making process that the services, COCOMs, and the Joint Staff, together with OSD, identified as a logjam that was not helping the process.
To get the reliability we would need, you need something that's at 4 nines, 99.99% reliability with all these challenges. And you cut the staff of the people who are going to make sure this thing works before we make it operational, before we give it to the warfighters. You got to go back and take a look at this. But I also strongly encourage you to put together before we spend $25 billion or $175 billion or $563 billion or $1 trillion, put together a group of people to figure out if the physics will work. You could go down a road here and spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of the taxpayer money, get to the end, and we have a system that is not functional. That very well could happen. And you're doing this just because the president, and I understand your role as the Secretary of Defense. You got to execute what the president says. But this this idea, might not be fully baked. And you can get in front of it now and figure out and find out if you put the right physicists on this. And I'm not saying go to the big defense contractors. Going to scientists, and I know there's a questionable relationship with this administration and scientists, but go to some scientists, figure out what we would have to do to build a system, and then make smart decisions before we spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Senator, we're doing that, leveraging existing technologies and not premising the project on aspirational technologies, what we can actually do, and would welcome.
Well, $25 billion in the first year is a lot of money. That's more than just figuring out if we have the ability to build a system that can handle a full salvo threat, hypersonic glide vehicles, MERS, thousands of decoys. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Senator Kelly. Senator Sheehy.
And if you thought that jaw-dropping quote from a Biden staffer was the worst of it, just wait. Because what comes next isn't just another accusation, it's a damning conclusion. According to Spicer, what unfolded during Biden's presidency truly is the definition of a threat to democracy. Let's take a look.
Now I think we're all seeing why.
Thank you. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm so pleased. I joined my colleague from Florida in saying it is time that we have this hearing. All across Tennessee, I hear from people every single week that say what was really going on in the White House, and why would no one say anything when with your very own eyes you could look at any of the footage and see what was transpiring with President Biden. And I think the fact that many of his own cabinet members knew that he was not fit to serve and that there was a cabal behind the curtain who was making all the decisions. It is so offensive to the American people. And it's not something that is a partisan issue. As I talk with Democrats, many of them have lost faith in what they thought was going to be a very moderate Joe Biden administration, and it turned into be the far left Bernie Sanders version of the Democrat Party that was using the auto pen and making decisions and committing our great nation to policies that the American people did not support and would never have supported. And I fully believe that because of that overreach and that flippant attitude that much of his staff had toward the policies of this nation, to people in the administration that chuckled about tossing gold bars off the Titanic. They knew they were going down. They knew they were going to be found out. And they probably knew at some point there would be a hearing like today, and the other side of the dais would be completely empty because no one can defend what they did. Mr. Wold, I want to come to you for a moment and talk about something that was really a disturbing revelation from the Tapper Thompson book. And you know, this is part of the thing. Now we're finding out the media was all a part of the joke. They were part of the ruse. They were part of the fraud that was pushed forward. A Biden staffer told the authors that Biden just had to win and then he could disappear for 4 years. That's all they needed to do. And, you know, it is, the following statement was, he'd only have to show proof of life every once in a while. And as I had a Tennessean say to me, when they had actually downloaded this book and read it, and then they said, you know, how stupid do they think we are? And the disrespect this administration showed to the American people. Why is it that the American people appreciate that President Trump goes out and nearly every day is taking questions and answering questions? Is because they have now found out that these staffers were willing to do undemocratic things, as using their term, to keep the president in office, to keep Biden there. They were willing to do undemocratic things, unlawful things. So, Mr. Wohl, let's talk about that behavior and how that undermines the faith of Tennesseans and all Americans in our public institutions, because they could see what was happening, but they were being lied to by people in the White House who were probably then running in their office and saying, well, we pulled it off another day.
Yeah, Senator, I mean, this is a theme you've talked about for many years, which is the executive branch is enormous. I mean, there are close to 1,000 employees in the executive office of the president. There are nearly 4 million full-time federal employees throughout the 14 departments that the president oversees. Executive power as accountable to the people of this country really manifests in two ways. The power of the president to remove bureaucrats and to fire them, and to affix his signature to official actions that he undertakes. So when the Washington establishment says something to the effect of, well, democracy dies in darkness, yes, it does when there are staffers, the media, cabinet officials, senior advisors to the president who all create a covering sort of shroud of darkness that obscures who is actually making the decisions. And one other thing I'll just say very quickly, a number of your colleagues on the Democrat side have said, well, there's an OLC opinion here. We don't need to talk anymore. There's an OLC opinion. It says you can use the auto pen. The opening paragraph of that OLC opinion says you can use the auto pen, but only when the president directs that you do so under his decision-making power, right? It is very clear again and again that the president actually has to make the decision. That cannot be delegated to a staffer or an advisor. And there's no indication here that anyone other than staff were making these decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the witnesses for being here. You know, the visual, sometimes it really is true. A picture speaks louder than words. It's worth 1,000 words. And here, all you have to do is...
Senator Blackburn launched into a sweeping tirade, laced with baseless claims and theatrical paranoia, accusing President Biden's staff of staging a shadow presidency and delegating decisions to anonymous operatives behind the scenes. She leaned on a passage from a recent book to argue, without evidence, that Biden's presidency was a fraud, designed only to win and then vanish, as if the president were some political hologram. Blackburn painted an apocalyptic image of the Biden administration, staffers chuckling about failure, gold bars tossed off the Titanic, and a cabal hell-bent on deceiving the American public. Her remarks weren't just conspiratorial. They were an insult to millions of voters who supported Biden's vision for restoring democracy, dignity, and competence to the White House. Then came a familiar Republican pivot, rebranding administrative governance as tyranny. Mr. Wall chimed in to echo Blackburn's claims, suggesting the media, Democratic officials, and cabinet members conspired to keep the president's decisions cloaked in mystery. But this tired, deep state narrative does nothing to address the real issues Americans face. It merely recycles MAGA talking points to distract from Republican chaos and legislative sabotage. As if on cue, the hearing transitioned into an even more theatrical attack, this time from Sean Spicer. He claimed that the aftermath of the 2024 election, when party leaders convinced Biden not to seek re-election, was equivalent to invoking the 25th Amendment. Spicer decried Democrats for allegedly prioritizing power over transparency, all while conveniently ignoring the GOP's own history of authoritarian enablement. The irony was rich, accusing Biden's team of lying when Trump's presidency was an endless parade of disinformation and deflection. Once again, the GOP tried to turn routine political decision-making into a constitutional crisis. From false narratives about immigration orders to imagined White House secrecy, their arguments remain as hollow as their legislative agenda. But we're not done unpacking this nonsense. In the next segment, we'll take a closer look at how Republicans are using fear, fiction, and Fox News talking points to rewrite the story of the Biden presidency. Stay tuned. Subscribe to Malcolm Varon Hearing. I'm Malcolm. See you soon.